Hey there, today we are going to learn how to make a zigzag ring. These things are a lot of fun to make. Every one is going to be unique and different because of the subtle way that you file and cut the metal. So let's go ahead and get started. To make this ring, I used 3mm wide, half round sterling silver sizing stock. It was 3 by 2mm, and this gives you some extra thickness and makes it so the edges aren't as thick. I ordered a whole foot, and that made 3 rings that were all about a size 7, so that works out to about 4 inches per ring. You're also going to want a set of parallel grips here. At least 2 files. This one has a smooth edge and a medium edge. This one has a rounded side, which you don't use, but this one is flat and very fine. You will need a jeweler's saw. I recommend a number 1 saw blade for this. Optionally, if you have them, stamps for both your hallmark and the metal purity that you're working with. I'm working in silver. You're also going to want some sort of hammer, either a rawhide or neoprene, for a no marring hammer to round out things. You're also going to want to have a ring mandrel. I have mine clamped into this vise, which is attached to my workbench. Optionally, if you have some sort of bench block for flattening out wire, that's very handy to have. Moving on down the bench, if you have it, a bench pin is very handy for holding the wire for cutting, but if you don't have this, then you can use a vise. I have this. This is a pan vise, which I use in almost every project here. Very versatile. You can open up this and the thing moves around and clamps here. Unless you want to spend hours with sandpaper and emery board, I recommend getting something to polish with like this. This is a Balder motor. It's got a tapered spindle end on one side for a larger wheel and a quick change on the other side for smaller wheels. You don't need a Fordham for this project, but if you have a rotary handpiece, it can take the place of a larger arbor, and that's an option too. For soldering, you're going to need some sort of block. I also use a charcoal block in several parts of this video, as well as tweezers. You're going to need, of course, a pickle pot, some clean water to rinse things off in. I also recommend getting a soldering pick, copper tongs for getting things out of the pickle with, and of course a torch. I'm using the Little Smith here on propane and oxygen. You're going to need 2 different solders for this project. I recommend a hard solder and a medium solder, but you can also do hard and easy or medium and easy depending on your skill level. You're also going to be seeing me use this unit. It's just another arbor unit here with its own dust collection. That way I don't have to constantly be changing around wheels. This one is dedicated just for using bobbin compound, which I do use quite a bit. During the final stages of smoothing and polishing, I use this rough bristle wheel here with the bobbin compound, and then this finer cloth here with bobbin compound as well. For polishing the inside of the ring, you're going to need a series of sandpaper grits. I'm using 80, 120, 240, 320, and then finally this medium grit rubberized wheel here. Moving on to the semi-polish or pre-polish, you can use this fine grit wheel. This oftentimes is usually red. And I usually skip the green, and then from there I go on to an inner wheel. This is a wool buff, and I use bobbin compound on this. After the bobbin compound on this, and if there's hard to reach areas, you can simply use a small bristle brush. Then you can move on to your fine muslin wheel with your final polish on both the inside and of course a larger wheel for the outside. All right, we're going to start out with some half round wire and a Sharpie. Now, this step is optional, but it just kind of illustrates that we're going to be making some marks on the wire, which we're going to be filing down. You can make these regular if you want your pattern to become regular, or vary them up a little bit. Unless you are taking a ruler out, it doesn't really matter. Next, go ahead and clamp it down in your vise. I'm using a #1 saw blade here, but you can use a slightly thicker or slightly thinner one if you want to. I'm just going to cut it at a 45-degree angle on each side in order to cut out a 90-degree square section. This will give you a 90-degree bend in your wire. So if you want it to create a sharper angle in the wire, then cut out a bigger notch. If you want to become a narrow angle, cut out a smaller notch. This is my favorite part, and this is actually really satisfying. Once you have all your notches cut, you can easily bend these just like you're making a picture frame. It's kind of fun to see what patterns you end up merging if you just freehand everything. Don't worry too much if it's not in a perfectly straight line because you can adjust it later. Here we're going to go ahead and add our hard solder. And I'm just holding a coil of solder in my hand and just touching it to each joint and having it flow into the joint as needed. Don't forget to go ahead and pickle. I usually pickle the items for at least 20 minutes to get all of the stuff off. And if you've done things right, you'll now have 3 pieces. I actually like to work on things in sets because it's just more efficient that way. Next, if you have any solder you need to clean up or rough edges, just clamp it down in a vise. This is where you're going to pull out your files and go ahead and smooth up all those corners. You can also do things like vary the thickness of some of the wires if you want to get kind of a lightning bolt-like look. Once you're pretty happy with the overall appearance, you're going to go ahead and bend it around your ring mandrel. You're going to need your rawhide or neoprene hammer, basically any non-marring hammer, to go ahead and get that bent around. Once you've got a little bit of overlap at the end, you can go ahead and pull out your bench pin, jeweler saw, and you're going to make a cut right across those 2 lines here so you have a nice even seam. Go ahead and get those lined up as best we can. You want to get them real close. I don't show myself actually finishing this because I end up getting a hammer out and kind of getting them adjusted a little bit better. Next you're going to go ahead and solder. At this point you don't want any of your previous solder joints to melt, so use medium solder. Or at least 1 grade lower than your original solder. Now it probably won't be perfectly round, so you're going to want to go ahead and round it out on your mandrel. Next we're going to be polishing the inside. This is where working with a camera gets really awkward because I have the camera right where I want to be sitting, so I'm just kind of running through the motions here. But you're going to want to start out with probably your 120 grit or your 80 grit, depending on how much solder is on the inside of your ring, because you want to get all the solder off so you have a nice clean inside. And you're going to want to sand the whole thing. I'm just kind of showing you that that's the next step here. After your 120, you're going to do your 240 grit, and then your 320 grit after that. So after the 320 grit, then I like to move on to a medium vaporized grit. I use these longer ones because they're great for wider rings like this one. You can get these from Stellar or Rubicon. This is just a rubberized inside ring polisher. Now, along with the different grooves, I'm using this fine, which is the red rubberized polishing. This is a knife edge for cylinders. Ships. I'm just going to put it up the pile mix and put it down because it's nice and easy to run the bottom part down. And you're going to need to get all those bottom marks out. So here I'm going to go ahead and use bottom compound. I didn't show it, but that on the other side of this machine, of course, is my coarse wheel, and that'll help take out scratches as well. So Tap the bonding compound into the inside of the ring with a full amount of a little more bonding compound. From there, I'm going to go ahead, and if I'm really happy with the way it looks, I can go straight to final polish. If I think I need to do a little more touch-up, then you can move on to a triple E and then final polish, but oftentimes that's not necessary. I also switched gloves from the bobbing compound to the final polish so that I'm not cross-contaminating my polishing grits onto my wheels and my workpiece. Now I like to use this larger wheel here for polishing the sides and the outside of the ring. It just makes for much faster work. Alright, so here's the final piece. I made 3 of these, again using 1 foot of the 3x2 half round wire, and each one turned out totally different. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Again, if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them below. I do check those and answer them whenever I come across them. The next video I'm going to do will be a little shorter one. We're just going to be adding a setting to one of these rings and putting a gemstone in it. And these rings are great for that because they have all these ins and outs, and you can add little pre-made bezels or prongs to those little spots and easily sink a gemstone in there just for add a splash of color.